Today, we're going to be discussing a 12-day tour and river cruise experience from Berlin to Budapest, including a stop at Wittenberg, where Martin Luther posted the 95 Theses. Let's go. Welcome to Tuesday Travel Chat. I'm Julia from Go Travel. We also have Bob Cook from Go Travel, and we have two special guests today. First, we have Patrick from Avalon Waterways. Hi, Patrick.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And next, we have one more special guest, Pastor Joe Wendorph from Markham Woods Presbyterian Church here in Central Florida. Hey, Pastor Joe.
Hello, how are you?
Great to see you. So before we dive into this amazing experience, I just want to kind of give you a taste about what we're talking about. Bob and then Pastor Joe, talk to us first. What makes this itinerary so special and who should be listening today?
Well, this itinerary is a wonderful overview. It's for people who like history, people who like wine, people who like art, people who want to see the beauty of Austria, Germany, Hungary, Slovakia. It's really an Eastern European trip into the world of Mozart, the world of Strauss, and also the world of Martin Luther.
And Pastor Joe, maybe you can talk a little bit more on the group and why people should go with you as a leader on this group.
Well, I would back up and say, first of all, the Bible starts out with "in the beginning God created." And when I think about creation, I've gotten a chance to travel a bit around the world, and there is so much beauty and the geography is so diverse that traveling like this is an amazing way to experience all of it. It's all there, and oftentimes we don't get to see it. So that's part of it, the landscape beauty. For me personally, I love traveling with the groups. I love, at least in our community, our faith community, being together is more than an hour on Sunday morning. It's really creating friendships. And to spend that kind of time, just like you would around a dinner table, having a glass of wine, you get to know people in a truly deep, intimate way that is beneficial to relationships.
Fantastic. Well, that just gives you a little bit of an idea of kind of who you're going to be going with. But I think you need to see it for yourself. Let's take a preview. Get a glimpse into this amazing trip with this video. Gorgeous. I'm super excited about this trip. This is an amazing opportunity.
Yes,
So
it is.
let's dive in. Let's take a look at the trip, the whole journey, and we're going to take you through that today. So let's go, Bob. We've got the MWPC, short for Markham Woods Presbyterian Church River Cruise, which again is open to anybody that wants to join.
Any religion too. You can always learn with Pastor Joe.
Sure. It's open to anybody who's curious about this trip. And there will be many people from the church there also joining in the group. Okay. So let's talk about it.
Well, first off, the picture you're seeing is the end of our journey. This is the Parliament in Budapest, which was totally restored after World War II. So this is what you're going to see from your ship when you're docked in Budapest overnight for 2 days. Here's a little bit overview of it, June 9th through the 20th, 2023. It's a 4-day Germany pre-trip. We're going to go from Berlin to Dresden with a stop in Wittenberg. Then it's going to be our 8-day river cruise aboard the Avalon View from Deggendorf all the way to Budapest on the Danube River. This is a look at the pre-cruise trip. It's Berlin for 2 nights. Wittenberg is a stop on the way from Berlin to Dresden, and then Dresden 2 nights. Then we will join the ship in Deggendorf, and we will stop at Passau, Linz, Vienna, Heinberg, which is actually the stop for Bratislava. It's a 10-mile bus ride, and then overnight in Budapest.
Fantastic.
Some of our highlights, what I felt personally are the highlights.
Sure.
In Berlin, the Reichstag Dome, which represents the unity of the German people after World War II and after the collapse of East Germany when they became one country.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most striking memorials to war is the Kaiser Wilhelm Church. Bombed out in World War II, lost 150 feet of its steeple. The church has been stabilized. Some of the amazing things that were not destroyed by the bombing are there. Crosses, tile work. It's a beautiful memorial, and again, a memorial and a tribute to peace and a symbol of what peace is. Wittenberg, where Martin Luther posted the 95 Theses. Dresden's Green Vault. The Green Vault was the site of a famous jewel robbery. I'll talk about that later. But the fabulous collection of jewels that remain, a spectacular city to visit. Then Passau, the cathedral in Passau, the world's largest organ. Chesney Kromlov, which is in the Czech Republic. It's an optional tour from Passau or from
Ybbs.
Ybbs. Thank you very much. The Benedictine Abbey in Melk, spectacular. Schönbrunn Palace in Vienna, the Prater, the park. The Waltz concert at night, which is an optional tour. St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna. And also St. Stephen's Cathedral or St. Stephan's in Bratislava with the catacombs. We're also going to see Budapest Chain Bridge, the Parliament, and many, many more beautiful sites. But these were the highlights I wanted to point out before we get into talking about our journey.
And if any of these are getting you excited, then you definitely want to keep watching here. Okay, next, let's start the journey.
Let's start our journey. First of all, you have to have a passport.
Okay.
Most important. See, there's a picture of one. But let's go on. Berlin. We arrive in Berlin for 2 days. Our pre-cruise start begins in Berlin. Again, you can see some of the highlights of Berlin. The city is a fantastic city. It is considered the pseudo-capital of the European Union now. It's always been a center of things in Europe, but Berlin is, I forget how many people, how many different nationalities are there. Almost everyone speaks English. You can get around easily. There's no question about it. But let's take a look at what's going on in Berlin. Okay. A lot of the sites we're going to be doing a full day tour of Berlin. These are some of the highlights that I just wanted to show you. Most of Berlin is built on an axis. You're starting up at the Brandenburg Gate, the Berlin Cathedral, the tower, all the way down to the other end where the Kaiser Wilhelm Church is. But most of the significant sites are centered along one axis in Germany. The Brandenburg Gate. This was the famous gate that separated east from west. Now, a new symbol of the unified Germany. American embassy is on one side of this, and the Reichstag and German federal buildings are on the left side as you're looking at the picture. The restored horses, they were destroyed during the war. The beautiful copper horses restored. This is the beginning of Unter den Linden that ends at the radio tower and the cathedral, Berlin Cathedral.
Incredible significance here. Patrick.
Yeah, no, Brandenburg, I mean, it's probably one of the most photographed places in Berlin, not too far away from Checkpoint Charlie.
That's right. Which is in a museum in Germany, I think. Yeah. They left it. Checkpoint Charlie is where a lot of exchanges were made for spies. And the Speyer River actually was the dividing line in Berlin. Berlin Cathedral, completely restored after being destroyed again in World War II. Me, who is not the most athletic person, walked all the way up to the top.
Wow.
For a beautiful view of Berlin, and then you see the radio tower. Have you been in?
There's a small river right next to it. Yes. So if you're able to do a river cruise, just a sightseeing cruise, it's beautiful, and the place just transforms itself at night. Yeah, that little trip is an hour, and you will have some free time to do it.
I was just going to say, is there free time if they want to take an optional evening?
What will happen is when we get to Berlin, we will be taken from the new Brandenburg airport to the hotel with a city tour because obviously the rooms typically aren't ready earlier in the morning. So when you get to the hotel, you'll have that free time in the afternoon. We're going to give you some suggestions as to what to do. Again, that hour-long river cruise, or to go to see the oldest church, which we'll show you a picture of, St. Nikolai's Church. So we're going to give you some ideas on it, but you're going to have free time, definitely. So let's move on. This is the Kaiser Wilhelm Church I mentioned and spoke about, that memorial to peace. It's one of the most striking things that I've seen after having been destroyed in the war. It's stabilized, and it's just a fantastic site. This is the Tiergarten, and this is the Unter den Linden. In the far distance is what used to be East Germany, with the Brandenburg Gate on the. That's where East Germany started and West Germany ended. The Reichstag Dome. This was built on top of the Reichstag, which was burned by the Nazis in 1933, completely restored. And the new parliament actually was built in Old West and the Old Eastern section. The building is built across the border and across the river. Remember when you did the tour, we saw that, and it was really interesting. So this is the Reichstag, and this dome, if we have time, we are going to go up into the dome. Okay, this is just a remnant of the famous Berlin Wall. And this is the oldest church. This is very close to the radio tower and the Kaiser Wilhelm Church. Did you get into this little church when you were there?
I didn't get a chance to do that. We went over to the museum. It was put up, for all of the Allies.
Yes.
Which is just an incredible place. I've truly felt like a great American walking through that place, and the way that they make everybody feel for everything that was done during the war effort.
Yeah, it's I agree with Patrick. It's especially being so close to Pearl Harbor Day. This is a special thing. Next, we're taking a bus from Berlin to Dresden, but our stop is in Wittenberg on Sunday. Actually, we'll be there on a Sunday. And Wittenberg is also called Lutherstadt. Lutherstadt was given that name, I think, officially in 1922.
Correct.
By the Weimar Republic.
They officially turned it into Lutherstadt, Wittenberg.
Now, Joe, can you tell us, Reverend Joe, I should say, Reverend Joe, can you tell us a little bit about Martin Luther's beginning of the Protestant Reformation and why Wittenberg is so important to everything about the Protestant Reformation?
Right. So as things are developing within what we think of as the Catholic Church, things are changing. Some of the priests and monks are having ideas of growing beyond some of what they had already seen, and they wanted to make changes. So they didn't set out to really wipe out the Catholic Church. They just wanted some changes. But ultimately, it led to this Reformation movement. There were several of these reformers, but one of the key individuals in this is Martin Luther, who is renowned for nailing his 95 points of debate up on the door. And so we call it the 95 Theses. But what it really did is it began a change in the way we view the church. Today, we take these things for granted, right? We take for granted reading a Bible in your own language. We take for granted the way we do church, even in the Catholic Church. So that is the beginning of the ignition of these changes that lead to the church as we experience it today. So if you want to know how what we do today got started, at least from the Protestant perspective, it all begins right here.
Excellent.
And we will be there with a tour guide to give us an overview.
And I had said before we came on air today, this is what really gets me excited about this trip. This is just one of those significant places in history, and I think I get goosebumps just getting to
again, Lutherstadt, Wittenberg, beautiful little town. Martin Luther, the statue in the center of the town. One of the churches, Lutheran, obviously. Then our next stop is Dresden. We motor from Wittenberg to Dresden and stay overnight in Dresden. Dresden has a very unique history. It was destroyed accidentally by a firebomb in World War II. One night in 1945, 90% of the city was destroyed. And this is what it looks like.
Wow.
Totally restored after the war. Bruhl's Terrace, one of the famous sites there. and we're going to the Green Vault next. The Green Vault you may be a little familiar with because it was the site of one of the most famous jewel robberies. They caught the people who did it. They've never told them where the jewels are. I think $280 million worth of jewels stolen.
Oh, this is exciting. I mean, this pre-trip is so cool already, and we haven't even gotten to the river cruise. So
yes, yeah, I get excited about it. Well, I get excited about everything too. And this is the Green Vault. This is what they didn't get. This is some of the artwork you're going to see. And after 2 nights in Dresden, you're going to motor to Deggendorf, where your pre-cruise tour ends.
Fantastic. So we've just had these 4 fabulous days exploring Germany, all kinds of really cool sites. And then it's time for a cruise. How about a river cruise? So we have the perfect guy to talk about it today. We have Patrick from Avalon Waterways. So Patrick, why don't you give us a little introduction to not only this particular itinerary, but who is Avalon and kind of what is this ship, the Avalon View? What's it going to look like?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me today. I'm really excited that everyone's going to get an opportunity to experience Avalon Waterways, which is actually part of the Globus family of brands. Some of you might be familiar with our counterparts, which would be Globus, Cosmos, and also Independence by Globus, which are really land tour packages and Independence too. We're going on 95 years old now. Still family owned and operated. We're the largest escorted tour company in the world. And we actually own and operate Avalon Waterways, which we have now, I believe, 14 ships in Europe. And I'm super excited that you guys are going to get a chance to experience the Avalon View, which is the newest ship in our fleet. She was just in March of 2022.
Wow. Wonderful. Yeah. That's amazing news.
So river cruising, especially for those that haven't had a chance to go before, the Avalon experience that you're going to be having on board our ships, it's a little bit different than what you have with the deep water ships. Far more inclusive, where we include a half day of guided sightseeing at every stop. And we'll get into the choice part of that here in a minute, but also unlimited regional beer and wines at dinner. Happy hours also included now too. Okay. And you can even start the morning off with unlimited mimosas if you want. So, but all regional cuisine. It's just, once again, a far more inclusive atmosphere. You're not constantly reaching for your wallet. It's all pretty much included. And very small, very quaint environment. So everyone gets a chance to see each other, meet new people. And the itinerary itself is really what sells this particular one. It's one of our most popular ones.
Going along the Danube and getting to explore.
Just so picturesque. Everything from abbeys, cathedrals, castles, vineyards. You're able to literally just walk into town when you're not on tour and immerse yourself in the culture and the history.
That's so cool. Now, before we get into the actual ship itinerary, what does the ship look like? We need to see a little bit about it.
Well, we're very proud of this too. Our whole fleet's what we call suite fleets, or suite ships, if you will. So all the ships are pretty much identical as far as the layout. Very, very spacious. We hold fewer passengers than most of our competitors. Even on sold out sailings, we average maybe about 150 passengers. Okay. So there's plenty of space in all the public areas. And it's one of our focuses with Avalon is space, views, and choice while you're on board the ship. So this is a picture of our club lounge, which is all the way aft on deck number 2. It's actually, for such a beautiful public area, very few people know about it unless, once again, advisors tell them.
Right. Yeah. So listen up. Okay, good hint.
All the way aft, and not only, a great place to kind of get away, maybe read a book or just see some of the scenery while you're actually cruising, but we also have an area back here where you have 24-hour specialty coffees available.
Right.
Juices, teas, snacks, and it's actually kind of funny. It usually happens on every cruise, but you usually see one guy early in the morning in a bathroom back here.
Are you talking about yourself?
No. I was one towards the end, but usually what you find out is one guy starts it off. He goes back early in the morning, gets a plate full of donuts and coffee. What are you doing? I'm taking my wife breakfast in bed. By the end of the cruise, there's a line of guys.
Oh, boy.
Somebody always starts it off. But it's a great place to, once again, just kind of relax or else have access to all the coffees. And it's just fantastic. Dining room. Once again, floor-to-ceiling windows everywhere you go in all of our public areas. So you're not going to miss a moment of the scenery. And our dining rooms are very specialized. We have a lot of 2-tops. So if you do want to have dinner with another couple, it's easy for us to arrange into a 4-top setting.
Right. Well, and that brings up a good question. So Bob, as far as for the guests, is there a certain dining arrangement, or is it just kind of people get to relax and do what they want?
It's really people get to relax. People form their own groups within a group.
Yeah.
And someone might want to say, Reverend Joe will be very popular. People love Reverend Joe and his wife, so they want to eat with him and have that opportunity. Right, Joe?
Absolutely. Looking forward to that. That's one of the best parts of getting to know people and having a conversation around a meal.
Yeah. It's just lovely to have that in the dining room.
And so for this, you're not gonna be stuck in some sort of kind of, I have to be there for this specific time for this specific table. It's going to be more relaxed experience.
Oh, absolutely.
And maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah. Matter of fact, if you're getting a slow start, you can have continental breakfast brought to your stateroom. You can even pre-order it the night before and have it there at a specific time. The dining room opens up in the morning, and it's open seating for breakfast.
Okay.
There are action stations there, so if you want an omelet or eggs Benedict, they can freshly make it for you.
Oh, beautiful.
But it's all regional too, so it's got that flair. Also for lunch, we're open up in a open seating configuration in the dining room as well.
Okay.
But other meals that you can have while on board, lunchtime you can do in the dining room, and on our river days, we'll have cookouts up on the sky deck.
Oh, great.
And in the afternoon, there's always tea up in the Panorama Lounge, with your small sandwiches and plenty of sweet things from pastries and cakes and pies and things like that.
So as far as the meals, you're going to be able to kind of be eating in different locations around the ship, depending on what's going on. You're going to get to really take in that scenery, whether it's from the windows of the dining room or the sky deck.
Oh, absolutely. And once again, these are all included. There are no optionals that you're going to pay extra for. In the dining room for dinner, remember, dinner, this is Europe. It's just not a meal, it's an event. And with unlimited regional beer and wine, why rush things? So there's usually a red, a white, and a regional wine that we offer different every night that's paired specifically for that menu. And the menu itself is all regional. We do have standbys on the menu every night. So if for some strange reason you didn't see something that was appealing, which I find hard to believe, but still there's Caesar salad, there's a beef, a poultry, and a fish dish. And the beef dish every night, if you want, is filet mignon. So that's always a good standby.
Yeah. I'll take it. It sounds good to me.
And don't forget, this is an Austrian Danube trip, Austria. If you don't have apple strudel, or they call it Apfelstrudel, you're missing out on an experience you'll never forget.
Oh, the soups and the pastries and the fresh breads. I mean, they're some of my favorites. So we also offer an observation lounge. It's all the way forward on deck 2, just in front of the Panorama lounge area, if you will. So I love this place just for having a nice drink or even having lunch out here while you're moving on sea days. You don't have the sun beating down on you. It's a nice breeze. And once again, the views are absolutely spectacular.
I love it. You said sea days. Yeah. If this were on an ocean-going ship facing forward, the chairs wouldn't be there because they'd be so windy. But this, what pace are you typically moving on a river cruise?
It's very leisurely. Matter of fact, unless you're looking out at the window, it's hard to tell that you're even moving. Right. And we still get questions to people you don't even realize that you're moving. There are no waves, no seas to speak of. It's definitely on the river, and it's quiet. So you're able to hear the ducks when they're flying over, or else the bells at the cathedral when they're going off.
Yes.
You're really in the heart of the destination, which makes river cruising very, very unique and very special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Very important area, our Panorama Bar. This is where everybody likes to get together. Not only do we offer, once again, the regional beer and wine at lunch and dinner, but once again, a happy hour every night, usually between 6 and 7, right before dinner. Your cruise director is going to have a talk to tell you what's happening that evening, to make sure that you signed up for all your included tours for the next day. And we also include happy hour, too, so there's no charge. Beer, wine, call brands. We do have a small charge for top shelf. So, but this is where it all happens. This is the main public area, if you will. And once again, floor to ceiling windows everywhere. So
it's gorgeous.
Yeah, if you're sitting on the port side and something's happening on starboard, you don't have to get up. You can see it from wherever you're at.
Right. And they're always cleaning the windows.
Always.
When you're docked, those windows are being cleaned.
Absolutely.
And I will speak on behalf of this particular group. They're not afraid of this this venue on the ship. So,
well, if you notice, there's also a coffee machine here just to the
oh,
left
okay,
of the bar,
good.
just in case you want a cappuccino or something like that. Even after hours, they're
Irish
available
coffee.
for you. One of my favorites. And another forward view of the same lounge. But plenty of seating for everyone, even during our sold-out sailings. Everyone can sit in here. There's singing and dancing every night, and every couple of nights is when we have the regional entertainment.
Yes.
There's a reason why we don't do it every night is because, believe it or not, your half-day included tour, in between everything else that we offer on board, after dinner and maybe a cocktail or a nightcap or two, everyone's ready to kind of, it's going to start again the next morning early.
Take it easy.
Absolutely. Oh, and a beautiful sky deck. Hot tub available up here, as well as plenty of shaded areas. But when we're doing our river days, sea days, as we also know them, when you're soaking in the scenery as we're going by, your cruise director is usually telling you about all the historic places that you're passing, the vineyards, cathedrals. And while they're talking, we're also serving lunch from the grill.
That's great.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Does this journey include any experiences going through locks?
Absolutely. Anything on the Danube and the Rhine, you're going to have a number of locks. And locks, for those that aren't familiar with, that's how we're able to navigate high and low sections of the rivers. So the ship will go into a lock, and either they'll add water to raise the ships for the next section of the river, or else lower us down. Yeah. It's a very unique experience going through these. The technology is old as time, and we're still using the same technology that they were hundreds and hundreds of years ago. But it's quite flawless, and it's also very neat to see it and experience.
It's mini Panama Canal.
Yes, absolutely. So your staterooms, we actually only have 3 size staterooms, and we're very proud of these because on Avalon Waterways we hold fewer passengers because our staterooms are larger than average than any of the others out there. We start off with our deluxe staterooms, which are at 172 square foot. All right. We only have a handful of them, and I believe on this sailing they're kind of limited at this point.
Very limited, yes.
Okay. And then from there we go to what's known as our panorama suites. Panorama suites are 200 square foot, bed facing the view, and floor to ceiling windows, or as we like to call them, French balconies, where you can open it up. It's almost 7 feet high and 11 feet wide. Kind of like the sliders you have at home, only it opens all the way up and it lets the view come in.
Yes.
Spectacular.
Yes.
And at the time of year we'll be there, it will be beautiful to have that open because it'll be not too hot, not too cold.
Absolutely.
Just perfect weather.
And keep in mind, too, that when it comes to ventilation on our ships, each stateroom has its own air conditioning unit. So that space, the fresh air is being brought in just for that one room, and you do have a thermostat control. It's just not controlling airflow, it's actual temperature control for you as well.
And something unique about the beds as well in the panorama suites.
The most comfortable beds I've ever slept on, without a doubt. You can have them separated into 2 twins. But once again, with the bed facing the view, and as Bobby, you were talking about maybe having those windows open, I recommend at night be sure and close them.
Yes,
because I've had it happen to me personally before. Go to dinner and leave the doors open and the lights on, and once again it's spring and summer, and the bugs were around the lights when I got back in.
I had a bird.
A bird?
I had a bird sitting on my table.
That's good luck in Haiti.
Yes.
But it's just such a great way to be able to take in the sights from that.
Once again, you're not going to miss a moment of the scenery in any of our spaces on our ship. That's really what we're well known for: space, views, and of course choice of things. But another view of the panorama stateroom, we have flat screen TVs with first run movies free of charge. You can keep up with the BBC, CNN if you want to keep track of what's happening in the real world. But we also have many refrigerators in the room as well. They are stocked honor bar style. Okay, so there's a charge for anything you use there. Little helpful hint: one of the things my wife and I like to do on our first stop is maybe get a nice bottle of wine, some local beer, some schnapps or something.
Right.
You're allowed to bring alcohol back on the ship. We don't confiscate it.
Right.
And you can put it in the refrigerator and maybe have a glass of wine, in the middle of the day or right before dinner, and it's right there available.
And
for
that's unique compared to ocean ships, where you're limited, very limited on that. They want to make their money from people buying on board. Whereas on this experience, experience, they're making it nice for you that if you want to get something local and bring that back.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, even if you're purchasing from the bar during the non-free hours, happy hour, our bar pricing is very, very reasonable. I found it cheaper than actually some of the pubs in Jacksonville or even Orlando.
Right.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And luxurious bathrooms. These are the bathrooms that we have in our panorama staterooms, which are category A, B, and P, 200 square foot, and that's 80% of the cabins on board the ship.
Wow.
So these are on deck number 1 and deck number 2 and deck number 3, and beautiful views, but spacious bathrooms. The shower enclosures are actually angled out, which gives you plenty of space in there as well.
You can tell they've really thought of everything in these configurations. It's just a really beautiful ship.
Even luggage and unpacking is phenomenal on these ships.
You are not on a barge.
No, you're not on a barge.
Matter of fact, if the ladies may recognize L'Occitane bath products, that's what we use in all of our bathrooms.
Very nice.
Very high-end French variety and very desirable.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. So that leads us to kind of, let's take a look at the itinerary. Now we kind of know where our home away from home is. We understand the setting, the ship that you're going to be cruising on. Now let's take a look at that itinerary. And Bob, why don't you take us through that itinerary and then let's go.
All right. Well, Deggendorf is our beginning point. This is Deggendorf, a view of what the city looks like. Our next stop after Deggendorf, the first off, is Passau. Passau is where you will find the world's largest organ in the cathedral that you see over to the left with the Schwiebel Dome, the onion domes, and there's usually a concert there at noon. This is also a wonderful stopping point to get out to some of the optional excursions. But what excursions do we have here?
Well, the included excursions that we offer on board the ship, also unique to Avalon Waterways, is that there's just not one included. We have a list of different excursions, and they're not published yet. It's because we have a high passenger repeat ratio, and some of these ports are sometimes used on multiple itineraries. So we try to keep all of the included excursions fresh as possible. But in Passau, you also have the confluence of the rivers. Excuse me, which are going to be 3 different rivers that meet up actually at Passau, which makes it a very unique itinerary. But some of the optionals that people I'd really highly recommend would be Český Krumlov, or else Salzburg in Austria. Everyone knows about the Sound of Music. That was both of these. It's really heartbreaking. They're very, very desirable. I highly recommend both of them, and I love them both. But
can only choose one.
That's right.
You got to choose one,
and then you come back another time.
Always reason to come back.
Another view of Passau. This is where the rivers meet at the point, and the ships all dock. Where you see the riverboat right there I think that's the Avalon View, or one of them.
One of them, and you can actually see the different colors of the rivers at the confluence too.
Linz, Austria. Little town that unfortunately was going to become famous. It's infamous because Adolf Hitler was born here. But it is a beautiful city. They've actually made his home an
anti-Nazi
fascist museum. And it's a beautiful city that shows harmony. And the architecture of the city is what you expect, what you've seen in The Sound of Music. The pink buildings, the yellow, the lovely colors that they paint their buildings, the little, with the ornamentation, the curlicues, the Schwiebel Dome, that dome you'll see on a lot of churches instead of a spire. They have the Schwiebel Dome, the onion dome, they call it,
Wonderful.
in southern Germany. And this is the Trinity column. That was a commemoration of ending the 30 Years' War.
Wow. And I'm going to bring in Pastor Joe again. Talk to us, because I know this area has some significance to you, especially.
Right, like so many Americans, we came from somewhere, and much of my, I guess, genealogy is birthed out of this very region. If you go and look at my last name, it's Wendorph, which I've been told doesn't mean a lot, except I come from a town of wine drinkers. So right in that area. But many of us can trace our histories back to this very area. So it has some, I think, historical significance for many Americans as well.
Excellent. All right. Heading on to the next port.
Okay.
Ybbs.
Why BBS? it's a very lovely little town in the Wachau Valley. And Patrick, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you can go from this lovely little
the
town?
Wachau Valley is probably one of the most photographed places on the Danube.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, if you look at travel magazines, and especially with river cruising, there's always pictures of the cathedral or the church at Milk, of course.
Mm-hmm.
We have the Abbey there. Probably one of the most ornate places that I've visited before. Everything's trimmed in gold. So there'll be opportunity to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dresden, that's a small town that's right on the curve of the river. There's also a vineyard there. Very small walking town, very quaint, beautiful. Small shops that sell everything from wine and schnapps, apricot brandies, and it's fabulous. But very high overhangs where you can see the curvature of the river,
Mm-hmm.
as well as down in the valley where there are other vineyards across the way too. But keep in mind that, with your cruise, you are included, rather, is a half day of guided sightseeing at every stop. And it's not one particular tour, but you do have your option of one of our classics, which is the must-sees, the highlights, if you will. And we do have a small percentage of active and discovery, too, that we offer. So it's really depending on what you want your experience to be. But in this particular section of the river, you're definitely going to want to see Milk Abbey as well as Dresden.
Wonderful.
Again, this is the Abbey.
That's the Abbey.
Gorgeous.
Absolutely incredible.
Everyone has to have an Aperol. This is an Aperol aperitif as you're going from Ybbs to Dresden, and this is one of the little villages along there. I took this picture because I like orange. But I just thought this picture was a very pretty representation of what you're going to get.
Nice job. That's a good picture.
It also happens to be Bob's Zoom background.
Yes.
Sometimes when his camera's not working, we just get to see this Aperol spritz.
I got a camera.
So
I have a camera now, so we're set.
We're always in the middle of a meeting. Ooh.
Yes, surprise.
Hey, Bob.
Hey, Bob, have a drink. This is Dresden. And the one interesting fact about there, they have a column on the river that shows high water marks.
Oh.
And unfortunately, the Danube is still subject to flooding.
Okay.
And I believe the highest mark is about 23 feet on the column on the river.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, as long as you mentioned that, I always get the question about high water, low water.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's really not a season for it per se. High water can happen during the middle of the season because too much rain. It can also happen early in the season if the mountaintops and the snow melt too fast.
Right.
And low water comes from, of course, drought.
Mm-hmm.
So, but our company is really uniquely prepared to handle those. It's very rare that it happens. But when it does, once again, being part of Globus family of brands, we have our own coaches, our own tour guides. We have year-round inventory at all the best hotels. And of course, with our suite ships, they're identical, except for the motif and the coloring on board. So we already have the infrastructure should something like that happen, but it's still very rare.
Well, I do know that you have done this in the past where the ship gets to a port. They ask you to pack all of your luggage up. You pack it all up. You come back. Oh, they didn't change ships. It is a different ship. Your luggage is in the same cabin. The people who were in that ship are now in your cabin.
Same cabin number,
same cabin number. It's seamless. So you don't have to worry about that. But at this time of the year, their water level should be just about right.
This time of the year, it's very, very rare for something like that to happen.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to know what is going to happen. You have that question in your head.
We've been doing this for a while.
That's
and once again, we have the infrastructure.
It's not one riverboat. It's many. Okay. Again, Dresden. Have you hiked this?
One time. That was enough. I've been there many times, but Richard the Lionheart, I believe, was held here.
Yes, he was for the hostage. Yes. He was a hostage
at
there.
Dresden Castle.
Castle, from the Crusades.
Yes,
that's how old it is.
And the town itself gives you a beautiful overlook of the river. But if you want something even more magnificent, feel free. You can hike all the way to the top.
Yes, beautiful. Especially if you go early, you might see that fog still on the valley.
Adds to it.
Gorgeous.
Okay. Vienna. We're in Vienna, the capital of Austria. Beautiful town, home of Strauss, home of Mozart, home of the Schönbrunn Palace, home.
So much to see.
There's too much. This is gorgeous. This is Belvedere Palace. This is the home of one of the largest collections of artwork by Klimt, famous for the Scream. But this is a beautiful palace in the center of Vienna, and you're going to run up against this. And this is Schönbrunn Palace. This was the actual palace of the Kaisers, or the emperors of Germany. The last emperor, Karl, was abdicated in 1918. So the Austria's been a republic since 1918. The Prater. This is the famous carousel. This was made famous in a movie but called The Third Man with Orson Welles, who filmed it here right after World War II. The zither music, that's what everyone usually that's that sound. But you can go to the Prater Museum because you dock not too far from the Prater.
That's right.
You're right on the river.
It's not too far to walk.
No.
Most everything's within reach.
And one good thing about Vienna, the underground is wonderful, and there's a stop very close to where the ship docks, and you can take that anywhere in Vienna.
And if people decide, I don't want to do a tour, I just want to wander around by myself all day, you have that option as well.
Exactly.
So,
Absolutely. Our cruise director, as well as our local host, they can tell you, what's within walking distance. And matter of fact, you'll end up with an app, which we call a Go app for Avalon. And on there, it'll have your whole cruise. There's even maps of each one of the towns. And I find it handy because I like doing the beer tasting every now and then. And since we pull up in different areas in the cities, you can drop a pin on where the ship is and follow your way back in case you're at one too many pubs.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right. Next, we are in the city of Hungary. We are going to be here on a Sunday. I do know that. Hungary is a nice little town, but it doesn't have a significance except that it's a stop where you will get on a bus and go to Bratislava, the smallest capital in Europe, the capital of Slovakia.
Yes. And before we came on today, Patrick was saying some people like to check off those countries.
Yes. Yep.
So here's your Slovakia,
You got
if you want to get Slovakia.
And previously, if you go to Chesney Kromlov, you get the Czech Republic. So it's 2 for 1. And you can say, I've been to Czech and Slovakia, and just say them quickly together.
5 countries, one ship.
5 countries, one ship.
Doing some traveling.
Yes.
Yep.
So from Hungary, 10-minute drive, 10-mile drive. This is Bratislava, the fortress overlooking. Now, Patrick, you've been in Bratislava more recently than I have.
Yes.
What are your highlights that you're finding for Bratislava?
Probably, I love this, the overhang or the overlook once again from the castle. I enjoy those. But I would probably say St. Stephen's, the cathedral, being able to go down into the catacombs.
Yeah.
Even if you don't want to go downstairs and do that, and some of the flooring in the cathedral itself, they have plexiglass over the graves of different bishops and cardinals and people who have passed. But it's just so historic. I mean, you walk in and you just feel it. It's hard to describe, but that's definitely one of the highlights for me.
Yeah.
But once again, Bratislava, when you see some of the suspension bridges, it gives you that Eastern European feel to the architecture.
And remember this, where we are in Slovakia, we are right on the border of East versus West, Western Europe versus Eastern Europe. Communist Europe was Slovakia, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, up until the 80s. So you have that significance of it. A lot of history along here. There's the Red Danube is what used to be called because it was the dividing line. Okay. This is St. Stephen's, I believe.
Yes.
Okay. And of course, this is a famous picture. This is a man, I believe he is an anti-war protester, but everyone takes a picture of it. You see everyone standing, crouching, bending down. It's a man allegedly coming out of the sewer after hiding after World War I.
Wow.
When their peace came, he came out of the sewer.
That's really cool. Okay.
Then we end up
there's the overlook right there. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. This is Budapest, our final stop for an overnight stay. Patrick, why don't you give a little description of what we're seeing along here?
Well, you're on the Buda side. The Buda side is going to be the high side or the mountain side, if you will. Pest is going to be actually where Parliament, also the local shopping area, which is also very, very popular with tourists to go to.
Yeah.
But you have Fisherman's Bastion over on the high side, which is also one of those places that's just heavily photographed, and you've probably seen pictures and didn't even know that's what it was. There's so much history here. I mean, and just from World War II, don't forget the bronze shoes on the Danube.
I was going to mention as well.
I get chills thinking about it. And I took my family this past summer, and the kids, they're in their 20s. They didn't realize so much this was going on so recent in our history.
Bob, why don't you explain a little bit more what the bronze shoes are? I mean, you're walking along. This is not something you need entry for. This is just walking along the river, and you will spot these little bronze shoes, and you really want to know the story.
Well, in 1944-45, as the Nazis were retreating, the Jews in Hungary had been relatively safe during the war, but towards the end, the Hungarian government had to agree by force to extradite their Jewish population. Well, some of them initially were killed along the riverbanks, but they were told to take their shoes off. And so that represents the Jews that were killed in the river, shot and then drowned in the river.
Because the shoes were
left behind.
Money.
Well, they were worth money, and they were left behind because
they wanted to keep the shoes because they were worth more than the people. So, I mean,
it's a shame.
Really powerful,
very powerful image.
Image as you walk by, and you'll see those shoes. Some other highlights of Budapest.
Oh, the market right here that you were just showing. It's very popular to go through. All sorts of the staples that you would, the locals want, but also some very unique things like Hungarian hell boxes. Are you familiar with those?
Yes. Yeah.
Very unique. Each one's made differently, but they're little boxes that you have to try to figure out how to open.
It's a puzzle.
Yes.
A Chinese puzzle in Hungary.
The joke's always, it's what you get your mother-in-law for Christmas.
And tell her there's a diamond inside. Yeah. This is, again, a view from
Fisherman's Bastion. Yeah, looking over at Parliament.
Yeah. And remember, all of this was destroyed totally in World War II. This has all been restored to replicate what was built in the 1880s, 1890s in the high Gothic Art Nouveau period. Hungary is really a tribute to Art Nouveau and the Gothic revival style.
And before you move on, I know that we have some things here, but Budapest is known for the spas.
Yes, it is.
So just if you look over to the right, there's one of the most famous. There's about 3 really famous different spas. So you just go try them all with the baths and they're
well, it's known because of the thermals there. I mean, it's natural. And you're right; they're all over the place. There's some that are open air, and some that are once again enclosed and done for therapy, and some are for fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've finished that river cruise portion. The last evening, you get to stay on the ship. So you have 2 days in Budapest, 1 evening that you can use the ship as your hotel, and to really explore Budapest.
And after your stay in Budapest, you don't have to go back immediately. We can arrange a post-stay if you want to stay 2 or 3 days in Budapest, which I think is well worth it. But if you don't have the time, fine. But if you have the time, let us arrange a customized package for you to stay in Budapest.
Exactly. Just call your Go Travel advisor and we will make sure to take
we'll get you
care of that for you. So you may be wondering, what is it like on this cruise? Well, we wanted to show you some pictures of the last trip that Markham Woods put together, and I'm bringing Pastor Joe back in here. So here's a few highlights of the Reformation cruise that we did in 2017, the 500th anniversary of the Protestant Reformation. Pastor Joe, just talk to us a little bit more about kind of the core of the group that you might be able to be joining.
Right. So you see the picture, everybody's leaning. That's what happens if you stay at happy hour too long. But other than that, what's cool about these images, and I'm looking at them on my screen, oftentimes you talked about excursions and getting off the boat, and many people would get off the boat and scatter through these different areas, but then we would meet up. And that's great about being able to connect through the apps. We could meet up at it, say it's a lunch area or a little pub, and you get to talk about each of your different experiences, because we can't all go to all the places at the same time. So this is sort of an example of how that happens, how we meet up at different areas.
Yes, and it's just so much fun. Everybody had a blast. We joked about that photo up in the upper left. It's the boy band photo, and just some good times all around. But moving into how do we book this? How much does it cost? I know there's limited space available.
Yes, limited
so
space.
Let's get into the details before we exit today.
Well, you don't have to do the pre-cruise.
Yes.
We encourage you to do the pre-cruise tour because we know it's going to be phenomenal. But pre-cruise tour is $1,728 a person based on double occupancy.
Mm-hmm.
So you join our group for the journey through Germany to Deggendorf. So $1,728 for that trip. Then the river cruise, we are still offering a major savings over what current pricing is. Our cruises start at $33.98 a person.
Mm-hmm.
That represents what, approximately $500 savings.
Yes.
Compared to if you booked it direct.
Yes. That's a great savings. Yeah. Excellent. So if you are thinking about taking this trip, we welcome you to join this. Pastor Joe, maybe, talk to people that might be considering, they're looking for a group to join, looking for a really inspirational trip to join, and your group.
Right. So the pictures you showed previously was, I'd never been on a cruise at all and didn't know what to expect. And others had, but so, you're kind of going into something not knowing what it would be like. And it was an incredible adventure. And so that's what I would say. If you want to travel, see the uniqueness of, as I mentioned at the beginning, the creation, see this history, but you can do it with folks at a very relational pace, which is my thing. Just being able to walk and talk and see and feel very, very comfortable. I felt very comfortable after having done that. I would say to anyone, this is a great way to see the world, especially see this particular part of the world.
Fantastic. Yeah. So again, I'm going to jump it over to Patrick to say a few final words in just a second. But remember, if you would like to book this, we are limited on space, but we do have both limited on the deluxe cabin, but also those panoramic suites. So just go to gotravel.com. We'll connect you with a specialist for this particular group, and we will get you started. We welcome you to join us. Patrick, why don't you say a few final words?
Yeah, I've got a dovetail on that. I checked inventory this morning, and it's a very popular cruise to begin with, very popular time of the year. And remember, we're not like the mega ships that hold thousands of people. You're talking about 150 people on a sold-out sailing on average. So a very intimate atmosphere where everybody that has similar likes, you're going to get a chance to see over and over again, just like Pastor Joe said. So I'd encourage anybody that hasn't done a river cruise, be able to travel with your friends, neighbors, or whoever, jump on this one. It's really going to be a trip of a lifetime. I can't wait for you to experience Avalon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. Remember, go to gotravel.com and we will connect you so that you can go on this amazing trip. Or also, if you happen to be a church group that you're looking for a way to build a church group just like Pastor Joe has done, give us a call and we'd be happy to design something spectacular for your particular church group. Thanks again, and we will see you right here next week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.